What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we've got a top 5 matchup in the SEC Championship, the game that everyone has been waiting on. It's Alabama versus Georgia, with the spot in the college football playoff on the line for Alabama. For Georgia, we know they're going to be in regardless. Unless something crazy happens, they lose by 50 points. I mean, they're in. They're going to be in. There's nothing that I could see happening that could keep Georgia from making the college football playoff. But for Alabama, probably have to win this game. And it's going to be a great matchup. For the first time in a long time, Alabama is actually an underdog in the SEC Championship. I broke this game down in detail. I gave you 5 reasons why each team would win in a video earlier this week. That video is on the SEC channel at the Voice of College Football if you'd like to check that out, where I really look at the keys for each team, 5 reasons why they'll win if they do in fact win the game. But the game is going to be at 4 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock Central time on CBS. Georgia a 6.5 point favorite. Like I said, it's been a long time since Alabama has been an underdog in a game, but I think they're an underdog for good reason. If you look at how these teams have played this year, look at how they played as of late, Georgia has definitely played better football. Doesn't mean that Alabama can't win this game, but the way they've been playing, yes, Georgia definitely looks like the better team. You look at the stats for these two teams, points per game, pretty even. Alabama a little bit more explosive on offense, just 2 points per game. The difference there, actually less than 2 points. Points allowed, though, look at that. Georgia, 6.9 points per game. That is just unbelievable. Alabama giving up 19.9 points per game, which is really not great for a typical Alabama defense. Normally you see that number down closer to maybe 14. But again, the 6.9 is just ridiculous. I know Georgia hasn't played the toughest schedule. They haven't played the most explosive offenses, but still, 6.9 points per game is just ridiculous. You look at the total yards, Alabama averaging 492 yards per game, Georgia at 442. A slight advantage there for Alabama. Keep in mind, though, Georgia has had so many blowouts that they don't even play their starters the whole game. So you wonder, would those numbers be a little bit closer if Georgia was playing in closer games and if they were having to play their starters through the whole second half? You wonder there. I think that number doesn't really tell the whole story when comparing these two offenses. Also, though, Georgia's defense makes their offense a lot better because they're getting them the ball back so quickly. So, again, these numbers don't tell the whole story, just something to look at here. Yards passing per game, Georgia 240 yards per game, Alabama 341 yards per game. Here's what's interesting. Look at the rushing yards. Georgia 202 yards per game, Alabama only 150. And that's not a terrible number, but normally we see Alabama with a much better rushing attack. They just haven't had it this year. The offensive line hasn't been great. They've been banged up at running back. It just hasn't come together really for Alabama on the ground. But Bryce Young has been unbelievable. He's been the old, if this was an old Alabama team with let's just say Greg McElroy or somebody at quarterback, they would have been in trouble this year. They would have lost probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 games, because Bryce Young has really come through for them and carried this team through the air. I mean, and look at John Mechie and Jameson Williams at wide receiver. If Williams hadn't come over, what would this Alabama offense look like? I mean, if the team can key on John Mechie, I don't know. It could have been a rough year. So Bryce Young and Jameson Williams should deserve a lot of credit for what Alabama has been able to do on offense this year. Yards allowed per game, you see Georgia only 230 yards per game, just an unbelievable number. But Alabama's defense is solid as well, 294 yards per game. They've got a very strong defense. Look at the passing defense. Georgia with the advantage, 151, Alabama 213. Yes, Georgia's pass defense has been really good, but I don't think that's all because they have a great secondary. I think it's just because their front seven has been so dominant. They've been getting after the quarterbacks. Teams don't have a whole lot of time to throw. So it's just the total defense is great. But I think people sometimes talk about these passing numbers and say, look, Georgia's got a great secondary. I don't know that secondary is great, but they've been better than expected with some of the injuries they've had back there as well. And overall, again, this Georgia defense is just unbelievable. Rushing yards allowed per game, a slight advantage for Georgia there. But look at Alabama. They're only giving up 80.7 yards per game on the ground, and Georgia's a team that likes to run the football. So when you look at what the defenses are best at. Georgia's defense is best at stopping the run. Alabama's defense is best at stopping the run. They're both better at stopping the run. So that really plays into Alabama's favor because Alabama can throw the football. We know that. So their best offense is the weaker part of Georgia's defense. I'm not saying Georgia's pass defense is bad, but if you want to move the football against Georgia, you're going to have to throw it. And Alabama can throw it. If you're going to move the ball against Alabama, you're also going to have to throw it. And the question kind of becomes, can Georgia move the ball through the air? Can they make enough plays in the passing game against this Alabama defense? And that will be one of the big keys in this one. And take a look at some of the top players for each team. Look at the stats here. The passing yards, again, Bryce Young has been unbelievable. Zamir White, only 691 yards, but that's because Georgia spreads it around. Talked about that a minute ago. They're very deep. They are very, very deep at running back, wide receiver, tight end. I mean, they have so many players at the skill positions. That was one of the reasons why I said that if they won this game, that would be one of the reasons why. Brian Robinson's kind of carried the load, over 1,000 yards this season, not really getting a ton of help in the backfield. He's banged up, was injured in the Auburn game, so we'll find out if he is able to go, if he's 100% in this game. That'll be a big key for Alabama because they're going to have to run the ball some. They can't just throw the ball every single play. But Brock Bowers was just unbelievable this year as a true freshman at tight end, 652 yards. We thought coming into this year that maybe Eric Gilbert was going to be a star for them at tight end. Maybe Darnell Washington would be that star. Maybe these guys would kind of be a Kyle Pitts type player. But no, it's the freshman Brock Bowers who has just emerged on the scene here for Georgia and been unbelievable this season. And again, he's their leading receiver with 652 yards. That just shows you how they like to spread the ball out. They give it, I mean, they have so many guys, so many weapons on offense. Alabama a little bit more one-dimensional, or not one-dimensional, but they're keyed in on Jamison Williams and John Mechie. That's who they go to most of the time through the air. And then Brian Robinson, that guy on the ground. But look at Jamison Williams, over 1,200 yards this season. What if he had not come to Alabama? Like I said, it was a huge pickup for the Crimson Tide. ESPN's FBI matchup predictor has Georgia with a 66.5% chance to win this game. So a pretty big percentage there. And just kind of some of the keys that were in my video on the 5 reasons why. I won't go through in detail, but for Alabama, the big key is going to be their third down offense. They are number 2 in the country in converting third downs. That'll be a big key in this game. Can they get that done? Their run defense, talked about that. They have one of the best in the country, number 2 in the country in yards per carry. They, I believe, will make Georgia have to throw the football in this game. Nick Saban, one of the big reasons, because if anyone's going to out-coach Kirby Smart, it's going to be Nick Saban. We know that this year was the first time that a former assistant had ever beaten Nick Saban. Will Kirby Smart be the second? That's a big question there. Bryce Young, just what he's been able to do coming through in the clutch. He is always calm in the pocket. He is a just unbelievable player as a first-year starter. And then Mechie and Williams at wide receiver. Georgia has not faced a duo like this really all year. Tennessee had multiple options, and they had a receiver go for big numbers. So that'll be something to watch. Can Georgia stop both of these guys? And then on the Georgia side of it, we talked about their red zone defense. They are really, really good in the red zone. Their offensive line has been strong, very strong this year, number 2 in the country in sacks allowed. So many weapons on offense, like I mentioned. Kind of a wild card here is JT Daniels. If Stetson Bennett cannot get it going, look for JT Daniels to come in and possibly give them a spark. That's something to watch for as well. And then just the front 7 for Georgia. They've been so good all year, 5th in the country in sacks. They only give up 2.49 yards per carry. And Alabama is one of the worst teams in the country as far as giving up sacks. So that's the key right there. It's going to come down to Alabama's offensive line. Can they handle this Georgia defense? I think that'll tell us whether or not the Crimson Tide will have a chance to win this game. All right, so this comes from OddsShark. As you can see, Georgia a 6.5-point favorite. The money's going with Georgia. 74% going with Georgia to cover a 6.5-point spread. So Georgia is the clear favorite in this game. Looking at the over-under, 57% going with the over. The over-under's at 49.5. That's surprising to me. Very surprising. I do not expect a lot of points in this game. I think it's going to be very low scoring. So I disagree with that. I would go with the under in that one right there. And you take a look at their matchup predictor. They're giving a score of 42-30, which is just absurd to me. Neither one of these teams is scoring this many points. I don't see that happening. I have no idea why the predictor is showing that, but I feel very confident that this is going to be a much lower scoring game. I don't expect a lot of points. So keys to the game for me, again, it's Alabama's offensive line. Can they hold up against this Georgia front seven? They haven't really shown that they can all year against good defenses. Georgia's the best that they will have faced all year, so I'm very concerned with that if I'm an Alabama fan. And on the flip side for Georgia, I don't think they're going to be able to run the football in this game. So can Stetson Bennett make enough plays through the air? He has been pretty good this year. I think he's actually underrated. Everyone talks about how bad he is all the time. He's actually not horrible. He can move around in the pocket, can run when he needs to, and they have just so many weapons around him. I don't think it takes an elite quarterback in this situation to beat Alabama. I know a lot of times it does, but when you've got so many weapons, you've got an offensive line that's been really good, I think that Stetson Bennett is good enough for Georgia to win this game. Look at how Georgia has played all season with Stetson Bennett at quarterback compared to how Alabama has played all year. And Georgia's been the better team. You've got JT Daniels on the bench. If you've got to go to him to give the offense a spark, I think that just gives another advantage to Georgia. Also, Alabama maybe having to prepare for him. I think this is a very low-scoring game early on. I think that both defenses will dominate the first half. I think it'll be close at halftime. But I believe Georgia will come out on fire in the third quarter. They've given up leads. They've lost, had Alabama come back on them in the past. I think they will come out on fire in the third quarter. I think it's a low-scoring game, like a 10-6 type game at halftime, but then in the third quarter, Georgia finds some things on offense. I think their defense is a little bit better than Alabama, so they're able to control the ball a little bit more in the first half. Maybe don't get a lot of points, but they can actually start to wear down this Alabama defense a little bit. Georgia is the deeper team. I know it's crazy to say that Alabama is not as deep as the team that they're playing, but Georgia is the deeper team. They can come at you with so many weapons on offense. I think they actually kind of wear Alabama down in the second half, and I think they pull away. And I don't think this game is close in the fourth quarter. I've got Georgia winning it 30-13. That is my prediction. I think that for Alabama to win it, their defense is going to have to just play at a really, really high level for 4 quarters, and they're going to need something big to happen. They're going to need a special teams touchdown. They're going to need a defensive touchdown. They're going to need just something big to kind of give them some momentum late in the game to where they can hang around in this game. But if you've been watching football this year, Georgia, like I said, is clearly a better team than Alabama. Alabama matches up pretty well with Georgia because they can throw the football, and I think that's what you have to do to beat Georgia. But when you look at how this Alabama offensive line has struggled, I mean, this Georgia defense is going to come after Bryce Young. If Auburn could do it, if LSU could do it, you would think that Georgia would be able to do it, and I think that they will be able to. I think Alabama's offense is going to have a very tough time moving the football and scoring points in this game. So again, I'm going with Georgia to pull away late. A game that's close up until about halftime, but then in the third quarter, Georgia starts to pull away, and they wind up winning this game 30-13. That's my score prediction for the game. Give me your prediction for the game down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more.